The world often whispers about the miraculous rise of East Asia, while spreading vague fears about America. But there is a brutal truth that few dare to admit. A gleaming civilization is sometimes just a veneer for the cruelest of prejudices. Imagine this. You wear your sacred hijab, carrying a heart full of enthusiasm to nations hailed as Asia's travel paradises, only to be met with bone-chilling coldness and blatant discrimination. This story has never been told in glossy travel brochures. The tale of these three Arab female students will shatter your illusions about where the pinnacle of civilization truly lies. When their dream turned into a nightmare, a shocking plot twist occurred in the most unexpected place: the United States. Could our long-held prejudices have been a massive mistake all along? They aren't your average casual tourists. This is the story of three young women representing the intellectual elite of the Gulf, fresh graduates from some of the most prestigious universities. First, there is Aisha, 23, from Dubai, UAE, an outstanding international law graduate, always sharp on issues of human rights and respect. Next is Fatima, from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, hailing from a renowned medical dynasty, carrying with her impeccably high standards for hygiene and propriety. Finally, Layla, from Qatar, a talented young architect with a critical eye for aesthetics, who judges a nation's civilization by its urban infrastructure. They possess intellect, status, and solid financial power. Their words are not baseless complaints, but evaluations from those accustomed to the world's highest standards of service. They embarked on this journey with the pride of youth. In their original itinerary, China and South Korea were the promised lands of Eastern discipline and prosperity they so admired. And the United States. To these intellectuals, it was merely a mandatory transit stop, a chaotic and aging shadow they planned to breeze through as quickly as possible to catch their flight home. To be honest, before their departure, the United States was never a promised land in their minds. On the contrary, it loomed as a chaotic mess, fraught with risks that they were forced to traverse. They had been brainwashed by countless prejudices from the media and exaggerated rumors. In their eyes back then, America was the image of an aging, decaying empire, where violence lurked around every corner and chaos reigned in the streets. But the biggest obsession, the invisible wall separating them from the land of stars and stripes, was the fear of Islamophobia. Will we be safe with these hijabs? That was the constant question that kept them up at night. They were convinced that in the U.S., Muslims would be viewed with scrutiny, lack of sympathy, or even open hostility. They had assumed that American freedom had crossed the line into disorganization, the complete opposite of the vision of order, iron discipline, and pristine civilization they had delusionally expected in East Asia. Therefore, their attitude when stepping onto that transit flight wasn't excitement, but high alert. It's just a layover. Let's just endure it and go home, they reassured each other, preparing their mental armor to face what they believed would be the worst experience of their lives. They touched down at the U.S. International Airport feeling like terrified birds. The memories of the past 2 weeks in China and South Korea were still open wounds. Fatima couldn't forget the nausea she felt entering damp, foul-smelling public restrooms on the outskirts of Beijing, or the way crowds mercilessly shoved her in the Seoul subway during rush hour. But the most painful part was the eyes. Those scrutinizing eyes, pointing at their headscarves as if they were aliens from another planet. With that mindset, they approached U.S. immigration, hearts pounding, clutching their passports, bracing themselves for a cold interrogation. But it didn't happen. "Welcome to the United States. How was your flight?" The CBP officer, a large white man, smiled, his voice deep and polite. No suspicious glares, no mistrust, only absolute professionalism. Aisha, the lawyer who was always sensitive to body language, was stunned. The immigration process was orderly. The lines moved in silence, with everyone respecting each other's personal space, a luxury concept they had desperately sought over the past few days in East Asia. Leaving the airport, they struggled with their oversized luggage. At their previous stop, when Layla fumbled with a suitcase stuck on a busy pedestrian street, the crowds had just coldly swept past, some even clicking their tongues in annoyance because she was blocking the way. But here, as the three of them struggled on the curb waiting for a car, a pickup truck suddenly pulled over. A middle-aged American man, his hands covered in grease, jumped out. They stepped back, their defensive instincts kicking in. "Need a hand, ladies?" "That looks heavy," the man said, then swiftly lifted the heavy suitcases onto the sidewalk to help them organize. Once done, he simply waved and smiled, "Have a nice day," before driving off. The three girls looked at each other, speechless. No one asked for a tip. No one stared at their attire. It was simply kindness between human beings. Fatima exclaimed, "Did he not see my headscarf? Or did he just not care?" No. He saw it. But here, difference wasn't a reason for discrimination. It was just an obvious part of life. Arriving at the hotel, the sense of awe continued to escalate. Layla, with her architect's eye, was immediately conquered not just by the building's modernity, but by its functional sophistication. Everything was spotless. The air smelling of fresh citrus, rather than suffocating smog. The front desk staff greeted them like VIPs. When Aisha timidly asked about finding a place to pray, the receptionist didn't show a hint of surprise or confusion. She quickly produced a small map, circling the nearest halal restaurants, and gently said, "If you need a quiet space in your room for prayer, just hang the Do Not Disturb sign. We will absolutely respect that privacy." That sentence was like cool water poured over their parched souls. In previous places, they had been shooed away by restaurant staff who didn't serve people like you, or stared at when they accidentally asked about pork ingredients. Here, their religious needs were viewed as a fundamental right, protected and respected in the most natural way. That evening, they stepped out to find food. And that was when the most positive culture shock hit them. On the American streets, they saw a microcosm of the world. A woman of color walking her dog, a group of Asian teenagers skateboarding and laughing, and there, another woman wearing a hijab, walking out of a luxury office building with an air of supreme confidence. They found a spacious, clean halal restaurant right on the main street, not tucked away in some dark alley. The menu was rich, the space bright. They ate a delicious meal, strictly adhering to their religious dietary laws, without a shred of fear. For the first time in weeks, Aisha, Fatima, and Layla were able to take off their defensive armor. They breathed a sigh of relief. The air here smelled of freedom. It turned out, civilization doesn't lie in flashy skyscrapers or bullet trains zooming by. Civilization lies in how people treat each other when they are different. The moment that changed everything didn't happen at a flashy tourist spot, but on a regular afternoon at a central park, while the three girls were resting before heading to the airport. Despite the warm welcome they had received, the psychological scars from their previous trip still haunted Fatima. She kept the habit of shrinking away, her hands constantly adjusting the edge of her hijab to cover her face as a defense mechanism, her eyes darting around in fear of judgmental stares. When they saw an elegant, older American woman walking her dog, approaching them, all three girls instinctively tensed up, their muscles tightening. In their heads, they had already written the worst-case scenario. A slur, a frown of disapproval, or worse, being shooed away as they had endured before. The woman stopped right in front of them. Time seemed to freeze. But then, she flashed a gentle smile, her eyes lighting up with genuine warmth, and exclaimed, "Oh my God, your scarf is beautiful. This pattern is so exquisite, it lights up your whole face." She didn't care about the religious difference. She only saw the beauty of the human being. She lingered to ask where they were from, praised their country, and waved goodbye. "Welcome to America, you beautiful girls." That simple compliment was like a hammer shattering the last defensive wall in their hearts. Fatima was stunned, and then tears welled up, uncontrollable. The hijab, the very item that had made them feel like outcast sinners in East Asia, was here embraced as a cultural beauty worthy of respect. In that very moment, they understood America isn't perfect. But here, freedom isn't just a hollow slogan on TV. Freedom is when you have the right to be yourself, to hold your head high with pride in your faith and your attire, without having to bow down and apologize to anyone. The three girls sat on the plane, looking down at the glittering lights of the American city slowly fading into the distance. Silence enveloped them. But it wasn't the silence of exhaustion or fear like the previous leg of their journey. It was the quietude of souls in deep introspection. They were wrong. The whole world, and they themselves, had misjudged America. Aisha, the sharp lawyer, opened her travel journal. The first few pages were scribbled with complaints about the chaos and grievances in the East. But on the very last page, she wrote just a single line. "True civilization is not where the buildings are the tallest, but where people stand the tallest as equals." They realized that the glitz of infrastructure can be built with money and concrete in a few years, but the civilization of the mindset, the core respect for difference, takes centuries of freedom and education to forge. They had arrived in the U.S. with the mindset of reluctant travelers, seeking only temporary shelter. But now, as they departed, they carried with them not just souvenirs, but a healed belief. The fear of discrimination had vanished, replaced by gratitude. From a reluctant stopover, the United States had quietly become the true promised land in their hearts, a place they knew for certain they would one day return to, not to transit, but to live every moment to the fullest. Sometimes, we need to travel halfway across the globe, tasting the coldness hidden beneath the glitz, to realize where our hearts are truly warmed. The three Arab girls found that peace right in the heart of America, a place the world argues about, yet the place that opened its arms to them most warmly. Regardless of who they are, where they come from, or which God they worship, America may be loud. It may be imperfect, but it is a place where human dignity is placed above all else. And that is the true pinnacle of civilization. What about you? Have you ever completely changed your mind about a country after actually setting foot there? If you want to hear more authentic stories, perspectives that completely change the world's view of the United States, follow and join me on the next journey.